Chapter 13, Past Memories. I was left alone in the room, staring at the ceiling, deeply concerned about Zishui. Of all times she could have entered, she chose the exact moment when Teacher Zhuang was pouring out his feelings. This young lady, while normally appearing docile, becomes relentless once she sets her mind on something. With a sigh, I stopped thinking about it. In my current condition, I couldn't do anything. Inspecting my internal state, I realized it was in disarray. My fighting spirit was heavily depleted. Thankfully, the Sky Demon technique was mostly intact. Exhausted, I thought, I need to rest. Drifting off, my worries for Zishui lingered, eventually pulling me into a deep slumber. Upon waking, I felt much better. A nurse walked in, and to my surprise, it was Kellen. I exclaimed, "Kellen, it's you again taking care of me?" She replied, a hint of irritation in her voice, "Who else but me? Ever since you left last time, you disappeared. I went to the academy to find you, and your teacher told me you were confined. You should have been out by now, but you never showed up." Humph. Embarrassed, I responded, "I was preparing for a competition, so I didn't have time." "Look, I came as soon as it ended, didn't I?" Kellen mockingly replied, yes, you show up only after getting beaten half to death. "Here, eat this. The dean specifically ordered this nourishing meal for you. Since I took care of you before, I got the privilege again." She placed a lavish spread on the hospital table. The centerpiece was a rich porridge, accompanied by fruits and pastries. Kellen continued, "I made this porridge especially for you, using shueshen, a herb, and a young chicken. It took me the whole night to prepare. Try it." The porridge was incredibly flavorful. I rapidly finished a large bowl, continuously praising its deliciousness. Kellen, satisfied, served me another bowl, urging, "Eat some of the other dishes too." Having devoured everything, I suddenly remembered I needed to clarify things about Zishui to Kellen. I couldn't give her any more reasons to be angry. After cleaning up, Kellen sat by my bed, asking, "How are you feeling?" Nodding, I said, "Kellen, there's something I need to tell you." She acknowledged with a hum. I continued, "Do you remember the girl we saw at the stable last time?" She responded, "The beautiful, innocent-looking girl?" I nodded. Sensing something amiss, Kellen calmly asked, "What about her?" Taking a deep breath, I confessed, "She's my girlfriend now." Kellen's rosy face paled instantly. She stared at me for a moment before asking, "When did this happen?" Avoiding her question, I replied, "I'm sorry, Kellen. I appreciate your kindness, but..." Kellen interrupted, "I wasn't expecting anything from you. Rest up." She left the room trying to hide her emotions. The moment the door closed, her tears flowed freely. Guilt washed over me. In just 2 days, I had hurt 2 girls. Maybe I shouldn't be involved in relationships. Despite her cold demeanor, Kellen continued to care for me diligently. But I knew I couldn't waver. My strength returned soon. On the day of my discharge, instead of Kellen, a colleague delivered a letter with just 3 words, "I hate you." Heartbroken, I left the hospital. I noticed Kellen watching me from a second-floor window, tears streaming down her face. I didn't head to the academy but to the Duke's mansion. I had to clear things up with Zishui. A servant relayed her message, "She doesn't want to see you." Desperate, I pleaded for one more chance to speak, but the servant repeated, "No matter what you say, she doesn't want to hear it." Suddenly, Ziyan confronted me with ice-cold fury, "Lei Xiang, you dare to see my sister? I'll kill you." A light arrow flew towards me. Dodging, I was then surrounded by 4 skilled guards. In the ensuing melee, a bell with a blue glow fell from my pocket. The Duke recognized it and ordered the guards to stop. Holding the bell, he asked where I got it. I replied, "First, let me clear things up with Zishui. Then, I'll explain about the bell." The Duke hurriedly said, "First, tell me about this. Leave Zishui's matter to me. Follow me. Ziyan, the rest of you can leave." With a sense of urgency, the Duke pulled me along, weaving through the mansion until we reached a room filled with bookshelves. This must be his study. As soon as we entered, the Duke firmly shut the door behind us and urgently asked, quickly, "Where did you get this from?" A memory flashed in my mind. I once protected a merchant while trading in the Beastman Nation. By chance, I met an old woman who gave this to me. She asked me to deliver this bell to someone named Lin Feng in the Empire. The Duke grabbed my shoulders, his eyes filled with excitement. I am Lin Feng. Did she say anything else? Tell me quickly. I frowned, please, not so tight. I hadn't expected that the person my mother had sent me to find would be the Duke himself. What a coincidence. He released his grip, his face full of hope. I took a moment to collect myself before speaking. That woman also wanted me to tell Lin Feng, that is, you, that Ling Ling is sorry. Upon hearing this, the Duke trembled. Tears streamed down his face as the sharp edge of the bell unintentionally cut his palm. Suddenly, he grabbed my arms tightly and rasped, "Tell me, where is she now? I need to find her." I shook my head. When I saw her, she was already very weak. I don't think she would have lasted much longer. I wanted to bring her back to the Dragon God, but she said she was too ashamed to return and then she ran away. The Duke paused. Why wouldn't she want to return? Ever since I found out she disappeared, I've been searching for her for nearly 20 years. Ling Ling, why? No matter what you've become, I will always accept you. Hearing the Duke speak like this, it seemed like he and my mother were once lovers. I asked, what happened? What's your relationship with that woman? With reddened eyes, the Duke sighed, you know, I was once a commoner. I exclaimed in surprise, you came from humble beginnings? The Duke nodded, my name is Lin Feng. Since childhood, I had a passion for both literary and martial pursuits. Seeing my ambition, my father spent all he had to educate me. Seeing my father age prematurely, I vowed to achieve greatness to repay his immense love. Lost in memories, the Duke's face lit up with a youthful glow. I had to work harder than anyone else. Luckily, I was gifted. By 17, I began to make a name for myself in the capital. To further my studies, I worked and used my own skills to get into the Tiandu Academy. Funnily enough, I was your senior, as well as your two daughters. During my time there, I met Ling Ling, who was 2 years my junior. I initially thought she was just another aristocratic girl. But the moment I laid my eyes on her, there was this spark. She gave my life meaning beyond money and power. Initially, I only dared to watch her from a distance, but eventually, we spoke, and I fell deeply in love with her. Ling Ling was kind and gentle. Just before her graduation, she accepted my love. I was elated. By then, I had a minor position in the court. I wanted to marry her as soon as possible, but then she vanished. I later learned she was the beloved sixth princess of the previous emperor and had disappeared during a battle against the demon army. This bell was the token of our love. Listening to the love story of my mother's old flame, I felt a strange sensation in my heart. Wiping away his tears, the Duke stared longingly at the bell's blue shimmer. I inquired, haven't you searched for her in the Demon and Beastman nations? The Duke said, it's not that I didn't try. I disguised myself and visited both countries several times. But searching in such a vast space is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Every attempt ended in failure. I always thought the Duke was a sharp and cunning official, but to my surprise, he had a tender side too. I asked, so, what happened next? Did you marry the current Duchess? The Duke nodded and replied, yes. Although I can't forget Ling Ling, I still needed to move on with life. With my exceptional intellect and vast knowledge, I gained the favor of a prince. He was willing to marry his daughter to me, but under the condition that I marry into their family. That's why the Xian sisters don't bear my surname. You might think I'm someone who would do anything for personal gain, but did you know that by marrying the prince's daughter, I shortened my struggle for power by 30 years? Had Ling Ling been around, perhaps I would have given up everything to live happily with her. But with nothing left for me to cherish, I took the prince's offer and married his daughter, the current duchess. I gained the power and prestige I always wanted and fulfilled my vows. But, was I happy all these years? No. The only solace I find is in the memories of my time with Lingling. When we first met, you asked me if I would have given up on the daughter of a noble if I had been in your shoes. It reminded me of the past. Indeed, had Lingling not disappeared, would the king have betrothed his daughter to a minor official like me? Certainly not. Yet, given our love for each other, we wouldn't have given up either. It's these thoughts that made me approve of your relationship with my daughter. So, it turned out that my mother's allure was that great. I sighed internally. Even if my mother returned, she's aged significantly. Would the Duke still care for her as he once did? Especially considering she can't possibly disrupt another's household. Considering all this, I said, Your Grace, I'm truly touched by your story, but what's in the past is past. Cherish the present. The Duke nodded silently and replied, Thank you for returning this bell to me. Tell me, what happened between you and Zixue? My cheeks flushed as I narrated the day's events. After listening, the Duke said with a puzzled expression, So that's what happened. You're not trying to deceive me, are you? I straightened up, replying, On the honor of a warrior, if I lie. The Duke interrupted, Enough. I can tell what kind of person you are. If it's a misunderstanding, go and clarify things with Zixue. She can be quite stubborn at times. Be patient with her. With the term ending, what are your plans? I nodded. I want to find a secluded place to train. After my battle with Riva, I realized my strength is still lacking. I need to grow to find my footing here. Having overcome his earlier sorrow, the Duke looked approvingly at me. Your mindset is right. You remind me of my younger self, always striving for better. And I've heard about your wild god constitution. But tell me, do you have a goal in mind? I was taken aback. What was my goal? Did I even have one? The Duke continued, Everyone should have a grand ambition. It drives you forward. My aim was to achieve unparalleled power and prestige, no matter the means. And I've achieved it. What about you? What's your ambition? Lost in thought, I struggled to answer. Did I have a goal? When I was young, I aspired to be a peerless warrior. But was that it? Surely there had to be more. The Duke added, Setting a goal isn't easy. I hope you reflect on it during this break. If you need a peaceful place to train, I can arrange one. I declined, thank you, but I've decided to leave immediately. You're right, I'm feeling lost regarding my future and need time to contemplate. Staying here would only distract me, as my thoughts would constantly drift to Zixue. I might not be able to resist seeing her. The Duke looked surprised. Aren't you going to explain things to Zixue? I replied, No. Could you relay the message for me? If I see her, I might not have the heart to leave. As the saying goes, true love doesn't mean being inseparable, it means being separated and nothing changes. The Duke smiled, You're wise beyond your years. Go on, and I hope to see a stronger version of you when you return. Taking off the necklace my mother had given me, I handed it to the Duke. Recognize this? The Duke trembled as he took it, his voice filled with emotion. Of course, it's the engagement gift I gave to Lingling. How did you come by it? I sighed. The woman gave it to me as a token for delivering a message. Memories of my mother's piercing voice echoed in my mind. The Duke muttered, Why would she give you this? It doesn't make sense. He didn't know I was Lingling's only son. I added, Please give it to Zixue as a token of my commitment to her. When I achieve my goals, I'll return to marry her. I won't be coming back during the break. I need to train in solitude and figure out my purpose. The Duke responded, I plan to inform the king about Lingling. He'll be elated. I feared that this news might reignite the war between humans and monsters, but that was beyond my control. My priority was to enhance my abilities. Bidding farewell to the Duke, I exited his study, only to encounter Zixue, who glared at me. Did my father just let you go? Resignedly, I shrugged. What did you expect? That he'd kill me or beat me up? Xian snarled, in my opinion, I should just kill you. Humph. My face darkened, and I replied, with that attitude of yours, I fear no one will ever want you in the future. With that, I turned and began to walk away. From behind me, Xian said, whether I get married or not is none of your business. Are you just going to leave like that? Not going to see Zixue? I stopped in my tracks and said, I've explained everything to the Duke. Go ask him. Tell Zixue that my feelings for her will never change. After leaving the Duke's mansion, I felt much lighter. After all, I had completed the task my mother entrusted to me. Now, what should I do? Go back to the academy, I guess. Teacher Zhuang wanted to see me, right? Once I see her, I'll embark on my journey of cultivation. The academy was no longer bustling with noise. It was eerily silent. I approached Teacher Zhuang's office and knocked softly. A voice from inside inquired, who is it? Come in. I entered the office, and she seemed to be reading a book, looking quite relaxed. It's you, Lei Xiang. Come in. Are you fully recovered? I nodded and replied, yes, I'm fully recovered. Teacher Zhuang smiled and said, that's good. Your performance against Liwa in the challenge match was exceptional. I replied with a bitter smile, exceptional? I still lost, and I couldn't even put up a fight. She responded, that's not true. Even though you were at a disadvantage initially, after you unleashed the wild god within, you caused Liwa a lot of trouble. You silenced those who were mocking you during the annual competition and earned respect for me as well. Teacher Zhuang stood up, went to the side, and poured me a glass of water. I took the glass, sighed, and said, the only reason I could even contend with him is because of my special constitution. I'm still far from matching Liwa's strength. She consoled, it's okay. He's 4 or 5 years older than you. Do you not have confidence in surpassing him in 4 or 5 years? Moreover, Liwa has been successfully chosen for the Dragon Knight team. He will soon go to the Dragon Valley to seek the inheritance of the giant dragon. Once he succeeds, he'll become an official Dragon Knight, and his power will greatly increase. So, you must not be complacent and always consider him as your target. I nodded, rest assured, I'll definitely defeat him. Teacher Zhuang returned to her desk, bent down, and took out 2 wooden boxes. Pointing to one of the elongated boxes, she said, this is the prize you won for the competition. I picked it out for you from the Academy's armory. Open it. Weapon? Prize? I had completely forgotten about this. I walked over, picked up the box. It was heavy. Even with my strength, it felt like a weight pulling my hand down. Teacher Zhuang gave a knowing smile, signaling for me to open it. Lifting the lid, I found a black longsword inside. It was broad and long. Apart from a clear black crystal on the hilt, it looked unremarkable. But upon closer inspection, I felt a chilling aura emanating from it. I couldn't help but exclaim, a great sword. Teacher Zhuang added, of course, it's a top-tier sword. This is one of the best weapons in the academy, a relic from ancient times. If not for your wild god transformation during the match against Liwa, the headmaster might not have been willing to part with it. He sees you as the best candidate to replace Liwa's position. I took the sword out of the box. Its design fit perfectly in my hand, and as soon as I held it, a cold sensation coursed through my body, resonating with my internal energy. The sword began to emit a faint black glow. Teacher Zhuang looked surprised. The sword seems to react differently in your hands. When I held it, there was no change. It's 4 feet 3 inches long, 3 inches wide, and 3/4 of an inch thick. It's a heavy sword, named Moming. The headmaster mentioned it was once a weapon of the demon clan and is one of the top 7 renowned swords of this era. The academy has 3 of these famous swords, one for Liwa, one for you, and one remains at the academy. Swinging the weighty Moming, I said, I can't believe the headmaster would give me something so precious. Zhuang responded, it's a fitting weapon for you. Besides, this sword would seem ordinary to anyone else. The deputy headmaster mentioned you had practiced dark magic and thought you might unleash its potential. Given its ominous appearance and your character, it's like a match made in heaven. I laughed. Seems I really am quite suited to it. Teacher Zhuang then pointed to the other box. That one's for your little sister. It's her prize. It's a set of jewelry that can enhance one's power. It's not a common item. I replied, I'll be sure to give it to her. Thank you, Teacher Zhuang. She smiled, don't thank me. It's the fruit of your efforts. In the future, always give your best, and you will earn even more valuable rewards. I nodded and said, I will. Thank you for everything. With that, I left the office, holding the longsword named Moming. Outside, the wind was blowing gently, and my heart was full of determination and ambition.